Okay, everybody, I'm going to call this video late term project advice because I want to talk a little bit about things that I like to see on your late term projects. All right. Um, and I'm really talking about drawing aesthetics here because I'm just going to be looking at some of the sheets here that have been generated in this project so far. The first thing that I want to say is that I like to see drawings that are nice and neat. Okay. And what I mean by that is that this one actually is a little bit big. It's 3/8 of an inch. I think probably having this project at 1/4 of an inch might have been better. But what I do like about this floor plan is that the view it's a nice size. It fits very well on the page. It's centered on the page, right? The annotation, all of these grids, everything lines up very nicely, right? When we look at the sections, they're in good spots, and they also line up with the annotation, okay? The dimensions are all nice and neat and lined up, okay? Things aren't overlapping, and it's just generally readable, right? There's room names, there's door tags, there's window tags, but everything isn't on top of everything else. Things aren't crossing over other things, right? Meaning like this section mark isn't over the top of a grid, right? So in general, this page just looks really nice. If we go to an exterior elevation, right, there's 2 exterior elevations on this page, which is great. If you wanted to put them at a smaller scale and put 4 on there, that would be fine too, right? But what I like about this again is that all of these these levels are all lined up. This is directly above this one, right? They're one on top of the other, and they're lined up. One isn't slightly askew and, overlapping the title block, right? So we don't have any messiness happening. They're not both kind of off like this, right? So things are just generally neat and tidy, okay? And it takes work to do that. You have to, look at your view. You have to go through all of your visual settings at the bottom. You have to turn things on and off that are not appropriate. You have to go into the view and physically line all of these different things up. And it just takes a little time. Not only does it take time, if you then change your drawing, sometimes you have to go back and reline them up, okay? Another thing that I noticed here is that this view title is the same length as this view title, and they line up, right? Click, they line up, okay? So things are just nice on the page. It all looks really good. If we look at something like you have to create an enlarged plan, right? There's no magic to this. There's not a lot of information on here, but what it is it's very nice and neat, right? So the enlarged floor plan is on one side. You see the interior elevation marker happening here. Here's elevation 1, 2, 3, 4. The scale is good. These are at 1/2 inch. But, again, the annotation is nice and it lines up, right? The drawings are nice and neat. They're not itsy bitsy so tiny that, if I make it like 1/8 of an inch, it's not so tiny that I can't read it, right? Click, and it's not up in the corner and the rest are over here, and this one is slightly askew up here and this one is sort of right there, right? Things are just nice and neat and tidy and lined up again. I give this little spiel every semester, but really, how nice and neat and tidy your drawings are really says something about you as a professional, right? If you're sloppy and things don't line up and they're hard to read, your client is really paying you a lot of money to create these drawings and to design a project for them. And when things look sloppy and they're not readable and the contractor has a lot of questions, then that just really reflects poorly on you, right? And here, I can look at this and I can say there's not a lot of content, meaning there's not a lot of dimensions, there's not a lot of annotation, but everything looks really nice and graphically neat and it's readable, okay? We can always go back in and add more detail, but this is a great starting point. So when I see a drawing that looks like this, or I see a drawing that looks, like this on the page, which you will all have not this stuff, maybe. But you will all somewhat have this level of detail in your drawings. And if you put them very nicely on a page like this, I'll be very impressed. Here's the garage ceiling floor plan here. Simple, but it's in the center of the page. The text is readable. The title is right below it. The garage roof plan, super simple, right? But it's in the center of the page. It's lined up. The title is below it. It looks nice. Main level ceiling plan. Nothing special. You notice this is at the same scale as the floor plan though. This is 3/8 of an inch. And the floor plan is 3/8 of an inch. Makes sense, right? Somebody who views this and then views this, there's a visual continuity between the two drawings. So they don't look at one and it looks smaller and slightly different, and then they look at the next, which should be kind of a mirror of this, just looking up, not down, and it's a different scale or a different quality, right? And they start to question whether this is actually the same as that, right? You kind of get the idea. So, you know, if this is a 1/2 inch, if it's 3/8 for you, fine with me. I think if you get this, let's see what scale is probably too small. 1/8 inch, too small. If you have it this small, you're going to get points taken off. 1/4 inch, pretty good if this were in the center of the page. And he did, I think, 3/8. A little big on the page, but okay. As long as your annotation doesn't overlap the title block, I'm fine with that. Okay. So make sure things are nice and neat. They're lined up, right? Even if I go to the sections, drawing here, right? Again, these are all lined up nice and neat. These are all lined up nice and neat. Lined up nice and neat, right? Just visually, everything looks really good. And I just think, even if there's not, you know, there's not a lot of detail to these things. The wall sections, right? There's not a lot of detail, but they're nice and neat. They're a good scale. They're all lined up on the page and it's readable. Okay. So this is, you know, of course, I have to say, this is an exceptional project. When the student turned this in, he got full credit. He did a great job. You know, yours could be this too. I guess I should say that. Here's the garage sections. He put little cars in his, super cute. But you get the idea, right? He went above and beyond. Here's the stair section. Again, you know, just very simple, but it all makes sense and it's very nice and neat and tidy. Now, one thing I want to point out, which is always I get quite a few students making this mistake with their late term projects. I want you to make sure that before you start putting views on sheets like this, make sure that your title block is the right size, okay? Make sure that you select it and it says 22 by 34 and not 8.5 by 11 or letter size or 11 by 17, because if you do that, it will be too small, all right? So first thing, make sure your title block is the right size, then put your drawings on the page, okay? When you go to print, Control P, Adobe PDF is a great option. Make sure that when you go into setup, that you actually choose Arch Size D. That's a 24 by 36. Okay, that will appear when you choose the PDF printer as your printer. If you don't change this, it will be by default a letter size, right? 8.5 by 11. And even if you've created these the right size, they will be printed to PDF the wrong size. Okay, we want this to be center. We want this to be zoomed 100% of the size. And whatever views you want to print, select, uncheck views, pick the ones you want to print. And you would have hit OK. I hit cancel, but then you would have hit OK and the PDF will generate. You want to make sure that this first one, combine multiple, is selected. If you want to print these from home to Adobe PDF and you don't have that, remember you can download Foxit. It's a free PDF creator. And when you are ready to print, if you choose Foxit PDF, you will get a PDF, of course. But again, the key to this is just to be successful is to make sure that you choose Arch Size D. If that's not available, choose 24 by 36. Landscape, center, zoom 100% of the size. Okay. So I think that's all that you'll need for this weekend to work and finish your late term projects. I'll post one more lecture on Monday or Tuesday, just adding some kind of, it's going to be talking about detail items essentially. Okay. So that will be our last lecture for the semester. And then for the last few weeks of the semester, you'll be working on your final project, which will be a small commercial project. And essentially it's just kind of to work and draw that project as a reiteration of all the skills that we have to date with Revit. Okay. I will be posting not lectures, but videos for the rest of the semester. And the videos will contain really screen captures of me drafting through the project, your final project. So if you follow along with the videos for the rest of the semester, then essentially you can almost get maybe 50-75% of your final project done just by looking at those videos. Okay. And in fact, I may post a few ahead of time next week just so that you can, if you want to get a head start before finals to start working on that project, you can. Okay. So send me an email if you have any questions, but do watch these videos. I think you'll be able to do a lot with them. Thanks, guys.